Footprints in the snow. Once there was an old groundskeeper who worked for a wealthy family. He kept the gardens cared for and the walkways clear for the grand estate. One winter day, after the first snowfall of the season, the owner of the estate frowned and told the groundskeeper that someone had been sneaking around the property overnight. He had seen the glowing of her lantern from his window the night before, and sure enough, there were footprints in the snow running all around the property. The owner of the estate was furious at the thought of a trespasser on his land, and demanded the groundskeepers stay up late that night and catch him. The groundskeeper had no choice but to agree, and so that night the old caretaker built a roaring fire near the edge of the woods to keep him warm in the snowy night. For a while, nothing happened. The poor old caretaker was growing cold and sleepy, but he knew his boss would not be happy if he didn't stand guard. So he continued to sit by the fire, and more time passed. Suddenly, the caretaker was startled by the sound of something shuffling around. Some bushes rustled, and a twig snapped. Ah, shit. Some bushes rustled, and a twig snapped, but the caretaker couldn't see anything. It must have been an animal or the wind. The caretaker lit his own lantern and looked around. Again, there was nothing to be seen. More time passed, and the shuffling noise started again. This time, the caretaker could see something in the distance. A light. It was faint and bobbing about like a lantern rocking in the wind. Immediately, the caretaker leapt up and gave chase. As the caretaker got closer to the light, it became harder and harder to see. The snow had started up, and the wind whipped it around. Though he could hardly see the light anymore, the caretaker looked down and saw footprints. With any luck, he could follow them right back to the culprit. The caretaker followed the footprints farther and farther back into the property. Soon he entered an area in the woods he had not been before. The lantern ahead had long since vanished, so the footprints were his only guide. After a while, the caretaker entered a clearing in the forest. The footsteps he had been following suddenly disappeared without a trace. Frightened, the caretaker looked all around but couldn't see anything. Finally, the wind died down and the forest grew silent. Just then, something caught the groundskeeper's attention. Exactly where the footprints had vanished, there sat a crumbling, old gravestone.